What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow, so today we are back going to be talking about Survivor Season 41, doing our boot list with no spoilers. We are just creating this boot list off of interviews, preseason press, and everything like that. I am so excited. We are 3 days until Survivor Season 41, which is insane. So my name is Rachel.
I'm Alyssa, and as Rachel said, we have no idea what happens in this season. All we know of the players so far is like their interviews and stuff. So we're prepared to be extremely and very wrong on this. Just because like the way that people interact in person is not really the way that you think they'd interact based on paper. Some of the things we found that like connect different people might not actually come up at all. So yeah, I guess we'll have to see whether or not we're right, but the way that we did this, because it's so like nebulous, is we put the players into three groups: people who are going to go pre-merge, people who are going to go early merge, and then people who are going to go late merge, or basically the final six. So we have those three categories. We put people into each of those categories, and then we each both pick a winner. If you're interested in seeing who we think is going to be the first boot from each of the tribes, you can look at our tribe reaction video because we talked about that in that video. So, yeah.
And if you wanted to hear in-depth analysis of all of these players, their little interviews, preseason stuff, we did a cast assessment, which was almost 2 hours long. So definitely these 3 preseason videos with this boot list video, the tribe reaction, and the cast list will hopefully be enough for you all to listen to before we start the new season on Wednesday, which is insanely exciting. So going into this boot list, in the past when we've done this kind of boot list video, we just listed 18 through 1 who's going to be voted out first, second, third, who's going to be in the top 3. But we found that was just very random. We were just making things up, fan fiction. What we're talking about now, sort of fan fiction for some of my picks at least. It wasn't really strategy. I just sort of put people in the top 6 if I liked them more than other people. So that is how some of the strategy went with this. And so definitely just very random, very subjective. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are. If you agree with us, if you think people will be placing pre-merge or like late pre-merge, early merge, or if you think they will be top 6. Alyssa and I, we have compared our 2 lists that we made, and we have a lot of differences, so that will be exciting. So starting off with the pre-merge, the 6 people we think that will be in the pre-merge cluster. First off, we have Brad, who is the rancher, and I think we talked about this in our tribe reaction video. I don't know. I just see Brad as maybe not fitting into the tribe that he's on, even though he is like a strong athletic dude. I can see the other people in the tribe getting along better and then voting him out. Maybe they don't need the strength or something on that tribe, and he gets voted out early.
I think he's also a fair bit older than some of the other people on his tribe, so it could just be like they don't vibe with each other in that way. So
yeah. I don't know. I just don't see. He seems like a fun, chill dude from the interviews, has a lot of stories and stuff like that, but I don't know. I just don't see him being around for like end game stuff.
yeah, like you can be a good person and even a good player and still just not end up going very far if you're not on the right tribe. So yeah, like you said, I don't see him getting to the end game. So yeah, Brad.
And for a lot of these people, like Alyssa and I were talking before the podcast started, it is sort of random, like we were saying, where some people, it's like, oh, we think that they could be the first boot, but also with luck and with chances with ever how this season goes, they could also be top 6. So literally, if the tribes swap after 2 episodes at the final 16, final 15, then maybe all of these things will get shaken up. Someone who was on the bottom could get new life, and then now they're at the top of their tribe. They make new friends. They weren't clicking with their OG tribe, but their swap tribe is a lot better. So another thing with randomness in there and luck.
Yep. So the next person that both Rachel and I have as pre-merge boot is Eric. He is the cybersecurity analyst who is currently living in Texas. I think he's another person that we talked about pretty extensively on our like tribe reactions, where it seems like he could definitely rub people the wrong way in his tribe and just like be a little bit too overpowering and overbearing.
Agreed. We were talking about it a lot in the tribe reaction video, how we think as an ex-professor, especially on the tribe that he's starting with, he has like majority students with Lyanna, Xander, and teacher Tiffany is on there, Evie, the PhD student, and then David, the doctor, is on that tribe. We were thinking that maybe Eric could be a little bit bossy because of his ex-professorship.
Yeah, and obviously, especially because I feel like a lot of people on that tribe said they didn't want to be bossed around, so probably would not turn out well for him.
So the next person we have on the pre-merge is Sydney, who is the law student. I don't know. For Sydney, for me, I was just thinking similar to Brad, even though in our tribe reactions, we were saying the blue tribe, it has the ex-NFL player. They seem like a super, super strong tribe. They probably aren't going to tribal council super early, but I was thinking maybe there's a tribe swap early on, and then that makes Sydney vulnerable. From Sydney's like preseason stuff, she seems like very outgoing, very confident in herself, but I don't know, similar to Brad, I just don't necessarily see her maybe fitting in with the other people in the cast come tribe swap, and she just seems very like out there, too much in your face.
I feel like, wasn't she also the one who was talking about how she used COVID as an opportunity to travel? Because I feel like we talked about that when we did our like cast reaction, but I feel like that could get her in trouble really quickly if she ever brings it up, just because like people don't like people who make light of a global pandemic. So I think that if that ever came up, it would definitely not be a good thing for Sydney.
Yeah, especially like the people in frontline jobs like David, um, um, Genie as a grocery store clerk, Ricard as a flight attendant, people that maybe had their jobs affected or maybe had like thought of losing their job or maybe furloughed or something because they weren't flying or less flights were happening. Things like that could maybe rub a lot of people the wrong way. Like we were saying, Sarah, she lost a family member to COVID, so people could really be like not wanting that on their tribe.
Yeah. And speaking of Sarah, she was the final person that both Rachel and I had on our list of pre-merge boots. She's the healthcare consultant who is currently living in Boston. And I feel like for me, it was just kind of Sarah doesn't seem like she'd be a particularly strong player in any one aspect. So I can't really see her going very far in the game just because, like, maybe she has a strategic mind, but I didn't see as much of that. And then she doesn't look like she's super physical either. So, yeah.
She was a competitive swimmer, so I would say she's probably more physical than the average person and has like the mental fortitude to do like long distance competitive swimming. So like the Katie Ledecky of Survivor Season 41 here. But if there's not a lot of swimming challenges, maybe those skill sets like don't align. But like I did competitive swimming growing up, and because of swimming, you know, you're also lifting, not waitlisted. You're also weightlifting and you're running and you're working out like that. So she can probably be fairly fit. So I was thinking she'd be pre-merge just because like she's a little bit younger. So even though she's like 23, 24, Alyssa and I's age, compared to the other younger people on the season of the college age students who are 21, 20, I don't know. I just felt like similar thing to the other people. Maybe she'd have a difficult time relating to the older people on the cast, relating to different kinds of people because she is so young.
Yeah, so it just seemed like maybe she wouldn't do as well, but I would be happy to be proven wrong in Sarah's case because she seems like she could be an interesting player as well.
Yeah, I think Sarah for me reminds me of Chelsea from Island of the Idols, someone who is seemingly like a super big super fan, but then they get voted out really early in the game.
Yeah.
So going into the two people in our pre-merge group of 6 that we think are different. So the first 4, Brad, Eric, Sarah, Sydney, who we just talked about, are the 4 people that Alyssa and I had the same on our lists. So going into the differences, the 2 people that I have different, I think Heather and Erica are pre-merge. Maybe, I don't know. Like we were talking about, Erica feels bad because she is a big fan. She's been applying. She was on the cast for Survivor 41 last year before the pandemic started and the season got canceled. So I do want her to do well. But yeah, for Erica and Heather, they were on the blue tribe to start off with, which is the tribe that we thought was going to do very well. But I can just... The dog. I can just see come a tribe swap or something, Erica being so small, she says she's going to be underestimated. If they need tribe strength, I could see her getting voted out. Similarly for Heather, even though Heather has a lot of background with like outdoorsy things, fishing, like she was mentioning, I can also see her being like a person that you'd vote out if you wanted to keep the tribes strong, especially in tribes of 6. That might be something that a lot of people are looking at come the first few days of the game.
Yeah, that's really interesting. The 2 people that I had different were JD and Nasir. So I feel like JD is one of those people where I feel like he could either go really early or make it really far in the game, and it really depends on like how he plays the game and how he's perceived, because he is one of the younger members of the tribe. So I feel like he could go really far if he can like get people to like see past his age, especially because he does have a lot of like worldly experience or whatever. But I feel like it's also one of those things where sometimes people will fixate on the fact that you are like a lot younger than them. And so I feel like if he can't like prove his worth to the tribe in some way, or if he can't like begin strategizing early on, it might be that he ends up being one of those people who just doesn't click with the rest of their tribe and ends up going home. And I feel like for Nasir, it could be kind of a different thing where like he definitely has the survivalist aspects down, but I feel like sometimes people are really intimidated by the people who are like the good survivalists. Like they might end up voting him out like after he's made the shelter, or maybe he's too bossy when making the shelter, and so people vote him out because of that. And I feel like there's a lot of ways where like because he grew up in Sri Lanka and grew up with an immigrant family, like there could be like cultural clashes that end up happening. And I feel like when cultures clash on Survivor, someone ends up getting voted out a lot of the time. So
these 2 picks for Alyssa and I here are very interesting because for me, I'm saying Heather and Erica pre-merge. Alyssa is saying JD, also known as Jairus, but it seems like for the show, he's going as JD. So Alyssa thinks JD and Nasir will be pre-merge. We are actually both flipped here. Spoiler alert, when we get to the top 6, Alyssa has Heather and Erica top 6, and I have JD and Nasir top 6. So we're totally flip-flopped with these 2 picks, which I found super interesting. So like we were saying, they're either voted out early or they can make it to the end. And Alyssa and I were on opposite sides of that spectrum here.
yeah, and I feel like that's interesting because like we've mentioned, I feel like a couple of times now, it really depends on luck sometimes, like the way the cards get played. So it's not necessarily that like these people are good players or bad players. It could just be where luck takes them.
Exactly. The luck of the draw for a tribe swap early on, if it's switching to 3 tribes, if it's switching to 2 tribes, if they mess up in a puzzle and then for some reason everyone wants to vote them out because of that, could get them voted out earlier rather than if they were to get voted out later. Also, this season is seemingly going to have a bunch of twists and turns, a lot of advantages. So that could very much well save some of these players that we're thinking are going out early, and then they end up in the final 2, 3, which happens a lot in Survivor. Someone is almost going to get voted out early, and then they make it super far because of some twist or something that saved them.
Yeah, and especially because I feel like we don't know a lot of the twists yet, so it will be interesting to see how those unknowns affect the game, which is another thing that makes making a boot list hard. Because I feel like we personally, like with Survivor season 40, there's no way we could have guessed some of the like twists that ended up happening in that. So yeah.
Exactly. So going into our next group of 6, we have the late pre-merge, early merge 6. So in no particular order, we didn't split this up as like 3 late pre-merge, 3 early merge boots, but it's no particular order with this list. So the first person we have in this group, the late pre-merge, early merge boots, is Evie. So I don't know. For Evie, I really like them. They seem like super fun and super cool in all of the interviews and everything. Definitely a friendly, upbeat personality. I just don't really see them making it to the final 6. Just, I don't know. No real reason. I just don't see like just certain people here making it to the end of the game.
I feel like a big part of it for Evie is that a lot of people are speculating that they're going to have beef with a lot of the other contestants. Mm-hmm. And so it's like if you are in a relationship where like someone really, really wants you going home, or where several people really, really want you going home, it could just be one of those things where like, oh, none of us really like Evie, so let's just vote them out. And while I think it would be like sad to see that happen because like you said, I really like Evie, I would like to see more of them on my screen, like it might just not work out that way.
Yeah, I could definitely see Evie being very like polarizing on the beach and on the TV. A lot of people are fans of her, but there's a lot of people like on Facebook that really dislike her. So, it could happen that way also on this season where people like them, people don't like them.
Yeah, so, and I feel like being polarizing is not a good thing to be on Survivor. So, yeah, Evie. The next person that we both had was Danny, who is the ex NFL player, and I feel like that kind of speaks exactly to why I think he's going to be in this category of like late merge to or not late merge, late pre-merge to early merge, just because I feel like a lot of times people who are more like physically strong end up going in this kind of area because people are worried about them going on a challenge run and stuff like that.
100% agreed. For Danny, I thought that he was the easiest person to put into this category. At the beginning of the game, you're probably going to keep him around because of tribe strength. He's probably one of the most fit people out there, even though, like we were saying in the cast assessment, being a football player doesn't necessarily help you in all parts of different kinds of survivor challenges like balance, things like that. But I think at the beginning of the season, you'd want to keep him around, especially because it might be more challenges like holding heavy weights that he might be good at, running around, doing little obstacle courses, things like that, which he can probably be fairly good at, better than the average person maybe. So you'd keep him around, but yeah, like Alyssa was saying, you're not really wanting to take him into the merge or the late game unless I could see him making it very far past this middle group of 6 if he sucks at the game and then people just keep him around as like a challenge threat shield, but also as sort of like a goat where maybe he's not good at the game and then you just keep him around. He wins challenges for you and he takes you on rewards, but he's like you're telling him how to vote.
Yeah, I could see that happening, but I feel like it's one of those things where a lot of these players, because they've watched a lot of Survivor, might end up playing like a textbook game of Survivor and end up being like, well, he's a challenge threat, so we vote him out now, type thing.
GameBot Central. So the next person that we have in this middle group of 6 is Xander, who is the app developer, college student. For Xander, I don't know. I can see him making it past the early group, the pre-merge group, because he is young, he is super fit. But similar to having Sarah getting voted out in that first pre-merge group, I think Xander, with his like being so young, yes, he seems like super fun and he's like very talkative, able to fit in. I just don't really see him getting to the end game because people would want to vote him out maybe as a challenge threat, just like Danny. And also maybe he's not fitting into people's plans. And maybe like the older people on this season, they're like, we don't really want to bring all of the young people to the end. Let's bring like the Parents Alliance together, the people who have kids together. Let's go to the end.
Yeah, and I also think with Xander, like the whole thing of like, oh, I'm an app developer versus I'm a student, like that might rub people the wrong way. I can't remember whether he said he was going to tell the truth about being a student or not, but like that is one thing to consider as well.
Yeah, Xander just reminds me of people from college. I don't know.
I feel like he's a very generic college boy in some senses. So it will be interesting to see whether or not he lives up to that on our TV screen. So that is the three that we had in common for this group. So our three in common were Evie, Danny, and Xander. And then the people that I had different from Rachel were Genie, Chantel, and Tiffany. And I feel like a lot of these people kind of fall into that same category we were talking about with Evie, where it could be like they're kind of polarizing. Like I feel like Genie is she's a grocery clerk, so she's very used to like customer service type jobs, and I feel like sometimes people who work in customer service can be very blunt about telling you when you're being an asshole because like they don't get to do that in their job. And so they do it a lot in their personal life. And so I could see that being very polarizing. I guess I just like don't see her getting super far into the game, but also I don't see her going like as one of the first because I feel like she could have a good social game. So that is what I thought of Genie, and I guess I can keep going with my other people so that we keep them all together. Otherwise, it'll get confusing. I feel like Chantel. We also saw on her like 3 minute clip. She might also go by Sean or Shan. We're not entirely sure, but that's a side note while I was thinking of it. She's the pastor, and I feel like it's one of those things where like she said like I'm not gonna have any trouble like lying, cheating, stealing or whatever. But I feel like it could be one of those things where she thinks she's not gonna have trouble, then she gets on the beach, she ends up playing that game where she's playing a super loyal game and that ends up screwing her over. And I feel like when you play a super loyal game like that, you either get all the way to the end or you get screwed over in this early merge area because the people who you are loyal to are probably not as loyal to you as you are to them. So there's that. And then Tiffany, I guess I didn't really have a reasoning for why I put her where she did. I just like was out of slots in the final six. I guess it's just she's an older woman and I feel like a lot of times people don't like keeping older women around super long just because it's one of those things where I guess a lot of older women don't often win the game, but people perceive them as being threats to win the game, especially if they're good socially. So, yeah, I think she would get voted out for that reason.
Something interesting, it could be Heather and Tiffany, who are the like older white women on the two tribes. They might be like, quote, competing for that motherly, quote, older woman archetype, which is there's like problematic like behind that, first of all, but they could maybe in the Castaways' eyes, they might see them as like, oh, we can't keep both of them. We can only have one of them. So that could be interesting. Another interesting thing, Alyssa, for our late pre-merge, early merge, and our final six, we have our three people again. So you have Tiffany, Sean, Chantel, and Genie in your late pre-merge, early merge group. I have those three in my final six. For my late pre-merge, early merge group, I have Lyanna, Deshawn, and Ricard, and Alyssa has those in her final six. So like we had the pre-merge and final six completely flipped, we have that here again, which is very interesting.
It would be interesting if those people ended up in an alliance, and that's why we had them exactly flipped. It's just whichever alliance ends up being the dominant one.
Oh my God, that'd be so interesting. So for me, Lyanna, Deshawn, and Ricard. Lyanna, the college student, sort of similar to Xander as a younger person on the season. That might be negative against her, but there are a lot of young people on this season that are like her age, 20, 21, 23, 24 with Sarah, who they could get along well with. For Lyanna, I was just thinking like you can't have two college students in the final six. So I put JD in my final six as the like winner of the college students, the longest lasting 20-year-old on the season. So I'm thinking like you're not going to bring them, and they're probably maybe going to be in alliance together just because of their age being similar. All of the like college age students might group up together. You're not going to let that alliance get to the end full throttle. And if you're smart, like Lyanna, JD, they all seem very, very intelligent. They're probably going to have like little side alliances on the side. And you're not going to be so obvious, like, yeah, I'm linking up with the only other 20-year-old left on the season. No, you're going to maybe have it like a secret alliance, and maybe Lyanna needs to get cut so JD can succeed, which is just fan fiction now. But yeah, that's reasoning for Lyanna. I think she's super cool and would love to see her in the final 6 also. The next person I have here is Deshawn, who is the medical school student. I have him being late pre-merge, early merge because he wants to come in sort of as a evil player. He has the nickname #DeviousDrad right now, and from his preseason stuff, he seems to like he wants to be all nice and friendly on the island, but in confessionals, he wants to be scathing, super mean. Sort of reminds me of like Bradley from Ghost Island, although Bradley was like acting up on the actual beach and not just in confessionals. So I'm thinking maybe Deshawn, after you're out there for so long, your true colors, your true personality are going to show. And if he is being scathing in his confessionals, which I'm so excited to see, I want to see him roast other people. It'd be so funny, but it might seep through into your everyday life because you're not sleeping, you're not eating. And so people might be like, yeah, Deshawn is devious D-Rad. We don't want him at the end because he is pulling out idols. He's doing all these twists and tricks. We don't want him around because he is being too devious. So that is my reasoning there. And finally, for Ricard, the flight attendant, I think he could honestly go final 6 also. He seems to have a very, very good social game. Like we were saying with Genie being a grocery store clerk, doing public service. Ricard, also a very public service oriented job, having to deal with all of those angry people on the flight. You're trapped with them for hours on end. I think that could be really good. Ricard also has a young child and another child on the way, so he can relate to the parents of the group. So yeah, I don't know. I just think because he seems so friendly, you're not going to take him to the end and you're going to vote him out before the finale night, basically. You don't want him there because he would win, because he has such a friendly smile, nice eyes, and he probably will be strategic.
I could see him as like the 4th place robbed god like person, which is why I put him in the final 6. But we can talk about that. There's one person that we both had in common with our final 6, who is David, who is the neurosurgeon. And I guess I put him in the final 6 because it seems like he would be really good strategically. And I also feel like he might be one of those people who gets like close but not quite, just because he is really strategic and cutthroat and people are worried about him winning, so they axe him.
Yeah, David is someone who I was thinking, I made my list. I put him in my final 6, top 6 here. And then I was like, oh, second guessing myself. Am I only putting David here because I like him? Like, should he actually be pre-merge 6? Because I could honestly see David as being the person who goes out too hard, too fast. He's looking for idols early and then he gets voted out because of it, or something like that. Or maybe being a doctor, he comes off as like bossy to other people. Something like that could get him voted out early. So I could see it either way. I think David, either an early boot or he's going to make it to the end. Alyssa and I, the same here, final 6. And I'm also thinking, is it because we like him and he like listens to Rob Has a Podcast? He listens to all of these podcasts about Survivor, so he knows like the meta, the end game. Not a lot of other people mentioned the Survivor podcast listening to as something that they do, besides JD also said he does. So maybe we just like them because they're bigger fans of the show. So David, final 6.
Yeah, I just feel like it's one of those things where with everyone, like we said, it could just be like how they actually play the game, because I feel like a lot of times how people say they're going to play is very different from how they actually play. So
Exactly. Everyone puffs themselves up in the preseason press and then they don't do what they say they're going to do. Maybe like Deshawn isn't going to be devious, but he said in the preseason stuff he is, and people switch all the time where they say they're going to do one thing and they do the complete opposite. So hard to tell what people's plans are.
Yep, exactly. So I guess
with our final 6, we have 5 people different, which we briefly mentioned our flip-flopping of the premerge and late premerge groups that we have. So my complete final 6, I have JD, David, Nasir, Chantel, Tiffany, and Genie. For JD, I talked about it a little bit with Lyanna as the college-age student. JD is my pick for the winner of the college age students. So I want to see him do well. For JD, I can really see like a lot of myself in him. JD does a lot of student government stuff, working with children, working like public speaking, was a campus tour guide. I did all of those things also in college. So I'm like, yeah, rooting for the guy who is, I think, very similar to myself, and I can definitely see a lot of like qualities and personality traits that I have in him. So I want him to do well, and thus final 6. For Nasir, Alyssa, you had Nasir in the bottom 6, which I'm so sad. I think Nasir is so cool and sort of like a Janet or an Elaine character. I can see Nasir falling into that kind of archetype as like, oh, a lovable, goof, quirky person that we're keeping around. And so hopefully he could stay long, but also like you were saying, Alyssa, I could see him going out early just because of maybe like physicality stuff. But also Nasir said he works out a lot and he runs. So maybe that isn't a factor and he won't get voted out because of that. I want Nasir to go really far. I think he's so cool. So I also have Chantel here as the pastor. I'm interested to see her play from the little 3-minute clip that we got that Survivor posted of the 3 minutes when they are like coming into the beach to meet Jeff. Chantel has a confessional saying, you know, I'm going to backstab, lie, cheat, steal. I don't care. Like, my religion stuff is not going to affect how I play. And so I thought that was very, very interesting. Like Alyssa was saying, it depends. Will she go with that, or will she actually fall back and want to not lie, cheat, steal, or anything like that? But Chantel, from the way she talks, she seems so bubbly and energetic. Like, you just want to be her friend, it seems like, because she seems so personable. So I can see her doing really, really well just on like a social game. Tiffany the Teacher, as in my final 6 too, with the whole teacher with students, a lot of students this season. I think Tiffany can do very, very well, especially because she has an 18-year-old kid, which is basically the same age as the other college age students here. Maybe she's talking to like Xander, JD, Lyanna about their college experiences, applying to college, stuff like that they just went through, and she can relate to them like that. Tiffany, having kids also, having numerous jobs, having a long life, she can relate with the older people who may have had similar experiences with her. And it was interesting in the little 3-minute clip that they posted, Tiffany and David had videos from their home life. So David had some clips of him in like the doctor's office, you know, walking around in his coat. And then Tiffany had a little clip of her and presumably her partner, her husband, hugging when she got the phone call that she was going to be on the Survivor season like last year, and it was like filmed or something, and it's in the show, which I feel like is not something we've seen in US Survivor a lot, where they include personal videos of like these people's day-to-day lives, which we've seen it in Australian Survivor in people's opening packages. But I'm thinking because they're including these clips of David and Tiffany, and Tiffany, maybe they're going further, because like, why would you include this clip if like we shouldn't care about this person if they're the first boot? So Tiffany, good social game. She has that clip on there as well, which I think might be foreshadowing that she does well. Genie, finally, in my final 6, the grocery store clerk. I really like Genie. She also seems like a fun, awesome person that you'd want to hang out with, because she seems like she just has so many fun stories to share. So I don't know. I was glad, Alyssa, that we both didn't have her in the pre-merge category, the first 6, because I think in an alternative universe, Genie could be one of the earlier people to go. But I want her to be final 6, so I put her there.
That is the way to do it. You gotta manifest. So my final 6, my full final 6 is Ricard, Erica, David, Lyanna, Heather, and Deshawn. I already mentioned with Ricard how I feel like he could definitely be like the robbed god kind of person, where like it seems like he really does have the full package, where he'd be able to be sociable because of his time as a flight attendant. He has a lot that he can relate to with other people, and it just seems like to me that he would do really well in the game. Erica, I feel like for her, she's the person who said she was going to be underestimated. Rachel, I think you said that like you thought that maybe people would be intimidated by her, or like her challenge prowess or lack thereof would be a problem. But I feel like it's one of those things where you don't need to win the challenges if you're good strategically. And I could definitely see her having the vibes of like, can't think of a Survivor player to compare her to right now, but like have those vibes where she's like the leader or the second in command of an alliance, and so she ends up doing well because of that. I already mentioned why I like David. Lyanna, I guess. Why did I pick Lyanna? Good question for my past self. Oh yeah, she was my college student winner pick. I thought that she was going to do better than the rest of the college students. I feel like I kind of had the same mindset that you did about like only one student can win, one student to rule them all, so to say. And I guess I also had Deshawn, but I feel like medical student and like undergrad student are very different ball games. So I feel like Lyanna, because she's so personable, she like is worldly, would maybe have a better chance, maybe be brought along as the GOAT because she is so young and people would be like, oh, no one wants to give a 20-year-old $1 million. Heather, I feel like a lot of the things that you said about Tiffany also apply to Heather, where like she's older, she's a mom, like she has a lot of life experience. And so I think it's kind of interesting because, like you said, it might be one of those things where people feel like they can only have one or the other. And it would be interesting to see if they like started working together instead of like working in opposition to each other. But that was my thought with Heather. And then for Deshawn, I feel like my thing is I really like it when villains win. I like it when villains get far in the game as long as they're like game villains and not people villains. But I think of like Tyson, Coach, Courtney, like basically the entirety of the Heroes versus Villains tribe, the Villains tribe. I feel like they make such good characters, they make such good TV, and I like it when they get far in the game because they're just more interesting to watch than people who are trying to play like nice all the time.
Yeah, it would be interesting instead of like people of similar archetypes fighting against each other, like we were saying, the Tiffany versus Heather going against each other. Maybe they will come together and create the super duo group. That would be interesting, but it does seem like a lot of people, if they are similar, they don't want to work with someone similar to them because it is too obvious. Like we were saying, the college students will probably maybe work together on the down low, but they're not going to be outright working together because it's too obvious. And similarly, like with people with the same name, we've seen it a lot in shows like Big Brother. You don't like the other person with the same name as you because then you have to go by a last initial or like a nickname, even if like you don't go by a nickname usually. So it seems like there is some rivalries between people of similar archetypes and then also people like with the same name or same kind of like background story.
Yeah, because it's kind of like you want to be able to distinguish yourself from them, and it's kind of like, oh, if they only think of you as like the old white lady, then they're gonna get confused when there's two old white ladies or something like that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so it would be interesting. I am very, very excited. On to our winner pick. Alyssa, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I picked Deshawn as my winner pick just because, like I said, I really like villains winning. I feel like Sandra winning is kind of like my thing that I really like, and it's like I don't know. I just think it would be interesting. I would think it would make for a really great like returning winners thing. It would be excellent.
Awesome. I like Deshawn too. We can't let that devious D-Rat. I also really like the villains. Like if I were to ever play, I would low-key want to be a villain. I think villains have more fun and they make better TV than someone that's trying to be so goody two-shoes all the time. So I also like Deshawn. For my winner pick, even though I said a 20-year-old was not going to win the game, I was like, hating on it in the cast assessment, like, oh, why are you casting so many of these 20-year-olds? Like, no one's going to give them $1 million. I have JD as my winner pick. So I am hoping he can prove us all wrong. He can be the youngest survivor contestant ever to win. I think he would beat out Fabio there with his age. And he will be the 20-year-old to win the season. He's going to beat out all the other college age kids and then become the sole survivor, which I'm interested to see because, like I said, I see a lot of myself in JD, so I want to root for him. And if he can win the game, that means I can win through him vicariously. So
If he can win the game, you can win the game.
exactly. A win for him is a win for all of us as young college-aged, post-college people.
Yep. So, yeah, I guess that sums up our boot list. I'm going to say this one more time, but we are totally prepared to be wrong. So don't come for us if the season starts and like JD or Deshawn is the first boot. We know we were wrong.
Oh,
It's
no.
okay. We'd love to hear from you guys what your boot list is down in the comments below. We'd love to hear if you have any reasons for your boot list, if you think that any of our ideas were flawed, and we're super excited for the premiere on Wednesday, and we will be podcasting on Friday about the premiere. So
So excited.
then.